Here we have a brand new Vectrex controller. So I bought this Vectrex controller many years ago, along with a couple others like it. I believe it came from somebody who worked at the company at the time. I had seen them listed for sale someplace. I honestly don't remember where. It was probably well over 20 years ago, but I'd seen them listed for sale someplace, and I went to the guy and I asked him how many he had, and he had several of them, so I ended up buying them all. What you see is, and this is the first time it's ever been out of this plastic bag, so it's basically brand new. But what you see is the cord has been cut off of it to render it useless. The person at the time, like I said, I believe he was working for the company. He took a few of them out as he was leaving because he thought he would, keep them as spares around the house, and if he ever needed extra controllers, he could, cobble a new cable together or take the cable off of his original controller. But anyway, this is a perfect candidate for a new controller cable. And here we have it. There are a couple different ways to take apart a Vectrex controller. And some people use heat. So basically what they do is they take a heat gun or something, hot air blow dry even maybe would work, but something to heat up the label, and then they try and peel back the label carefully without damaging it. The problem with that is that it's very difficult to not damage it. I've tried that several times, and I've been successful, but I've also failed and ruined some labels. There are new labels readily available from a couple different people that make pretty decent quality labels. Console 5 is one of them. But the problem that I have with that is that if you ever need to get back into the controller for some reason, for example, say one of the buttons is starting to become less responsive and the contacts need to be cleaned, then you have to do the whole process over again. So the way that I do it, and the way that I've always done it, and I've done probably upwards of 100 of them this way, is I actually pop the screws out from under the label. So if you run your finger along the perimeter of the label, you have to press a little bit hard as you're doing it, but you can actually feel little indentations in the label where the screws are, and from that you can do it. But I also, and I don't know where I'm going to have this available, probably on my website for download, but I also made a little template. So you take this template, you print it out on any printer, and then you just lay it over the top of the Vectrex control panel. There are little X's on the template where the screws are. So for example, this one would be right here. So all you have to do is take an X-Acto knife and cut exactly where that X is, just like that, in both directions, and just like that. And now I've poked a relatively clean hole in the control panel overlay. And what I'm going to do is, once I have that hole in place, I'm going to use a screwdriver and I'm going to feel it around a little bit until I can feel like it's set into the screw properly. And then I'm just going to back the screw out, just like this. One thing to keep in mind here is, as you're backing the screw out, it may cause the control panel overlay sticker to pop up. And something that I'll do is I'll hold the edge, and it's kind of hard to show on this camera, but I'll hold the edge as I'm backing the screw out so that it doesn't pop the label off. And as you can see, that screw is out. Yes, there's a little hole in the control panel overlay, but that's okay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to press that back into the hole, all the plastic from the label, and then we're going to move on to the next screw. I'm going to do 2 of them here in this video, and the rest of them you can do yourself. But anyway, the second one is going to be right up here near the Vectrex logo. Same thing. Follow where the X is. I can also kind of feel it with the X-Acto knife. I can feel the screw underneath it as I'm cutting into it. So just poke a little hole, just like so. And now, as I feel my X-Acto knife, I'm actually down into the center of this Phillips screw, and that's probably good enough. Take the template off again. I got my screwdriver, pushing down kind of hard on the screwdriver to make sure that it sits into the Phillips. Yeah, exactly. to make sure that it sits into the screw all the way. And the same thing, I'm going to hold the edge of this label just so it doesn't pop up, and I'm starting to see the screw come out, and there it is. So I'm probably going to skip, there's my second screw. I'm probably going to skip ahead on this video until the other ones are done. So I'll get the other ones done and then I'll be right back. So as I was doing some of the other ones, I kind of remembered something that I've found helpful over the years in doing these things. So as I have my X-Acto knife, I can actually, I have an idea where the indentation is, but as I just touch it with the X-Acto knife, not actually pressing in and cutting it, as I just touch it, I can feel the outline of that indentation even better than I could with just my finger. So same thing here. I'm not using the template here, but I know where that indentation is because I've poked, just kind of prodded around a little bit with my X-Acto knife. And same thing. Press it in. I feel the screw. Backing it out. Backing it out. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold the edge. Backing it out. And then the head of the screw emerges. And same thing. I'm going to push all of this label back into that. I didn't really even make a hole, but there you do lose a little bit of the label, but it doesn't make any difference because it's going to be all filled back in when we put the screw back in. Okay, last one is up here. Same thing, I can feel roughly where it is, and now with my knife I can feel the indentation even better. I know where it is. I'm right in the center of the screw right there. And then the other way, like that. Got my screwdriver. I'm going to back it out. Hold the edge of the label. Now, on my last screw, one thing that you might want to keep in mind is on the last screw, since all of the other screws are out, as I'm taking the last screw out, it may actually force the top of the controller off if you don't hold it down with your finger. And there's the last screw. All four of them are out. Let's push this plastic back into the hole like so, and it is free. Remove that. There's the bottom of the controller, there's the inside of the controller, and we'll get rid of the bottom for now, just set it aside. Okay, so once we're inside, back to the cable replacement, there's only one screw that holds the circuit board that's underneath the buttons and basically all of the wiring. And that small screw is right in the center of the board. We're going to remove that, and now the whole circuit board is free, including the rubber membrane that actually stuck to the board. It's not held on there by any sort of adhesive or anything, so you can just peel it right back off and set it back on the buttons if you want. So while we have this out, something that we can do is we can clean the contacts of the buttons just to make sure that they are good before we put it back together. This one is obviously brand new, doesn't really need to be cleaned, but I'm going to do it anyway just to show you. So these are the buttons. All four of the action buttons on the Vectrex controller are there. I just use a pencil eraser. Clean the contacts, get rid of any oxidation on those buttons, like that. Like so, like so, and like so. So the contacts on these are clean. I also will take like a little bit of a paper towel or something just to make sure that there isn't any rubber residue from the pencil eraser. I like to do the same thing with the little rubber membrane underneath the buttons, because this is what actually makes contact with each of those buttons. I like to do the same thing on those. So I'll take the same pencil eraser, go one by one, the little black carbon pads, just a regular pencil eraser. It's nothing that's too abrasive that's going to damage them. Clean all of the pads, and then the same thing on the fourth one. Just blow it to get any sort of pencil eraser off of there. Put it back inside the controller, and we are good to go. Now, to the business of removing the cable. So here we have our cable. It has a little strain relief in it, and each one of these wires are soldered onto this circuit board right along there. You have to remove them from the back. One thing that you might want to do, and I'll probably put up a graphic in this video, is to make note of the order that the order of the color of the wires. And I'll put a graphic up on screen, and also the numbers on the back. If you notice, each wire has a number next to it all along. I don't know how well you can see that on the video or not, but each wire has a number on it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to remove all of these wires. The simplest way to remove them, and this isn't really taking into consideration putting the new wires back, but for now let's just get the old wire out, is to heat it up, hold it on the other side, and just pull it through as the solder becomes molten. Second wire is orange. I have a good grip on it on the back. Heat it up, pull the wire out. Third wire is yellow. Heat up the third position. Just pull it through. Next one is green. Heat up the fourth spot, pull it through. And after that we get black. Heat up the black wire, pull it through. Next one is gray. Heat up, next one is blue. I didn't do the blue one. Heat up the blue wire, pull it through. Next one is gray. Heat up the gray wire, pull that through. What else do we got here? Next one looks like it's brown. We'll heat up that second to last position and pull the brown wire, and the last one is white. We'll heat up that last wire and pull that out. So there we have my severed controller wire has been removed. On the replacement cable, all of the wires are the same color as the original. The only thing that I'll note is on some controllers, I've noticed that instead of a white wire, they use a clear wire. So it really doesn't make any difference because it's only one wire, and then the last, all of the other wires will be the same color. So we're just going to put these wires back into the same spot. You have to remove the solder. So and you're kind of on your own with this one because I have a desoldering tool. Not everybody has those. You may use an old-fashioned little bulb desoldering tool, or some people have handheld desoldering tools. But anyway, the solder that's on these, you can even use solder wick if you want, whatever you have available to you. But the solder on each one of these pads has to be removed. So I'm going to do that and probably pause this video and come back after it's done. Okay, I am back. All the solder is removed. I cleaned the board up with a little bit of alcohol, so I have a nice clean surface to solder to at this point. And now it is time to start soldering all the wires back in. So, going from the top. And wire number 4 is red. We're going to poke it through the bottom, first hole, make sure that it's sticking out through that hole. Like so. And I'm going to solder it in place. Just like that. The second wire is orange, I believe. Find the orange wire. Poke it up through the bottom. The other thing to be conscious of is as you poke these wires through the bottom, they're going to have a tendency to fall through. I mean, just kind of watch it, keep an eye on it as you're soldering and make sure that it doesn't fall through. You'd rather have too much wire sticking through than not enough, because you can always trim it when we're done, which I'm going to do. So the second wire is orange, that's good. Third wire is yellow. Again, we're going from what you would consider the top to the bottom, I guess, and I guess that's arguable, but anyway, third wire is yellow. Poke it through the bottom. See, now that one, this one is actually doing exactly what I was just saying. This one gives me a hard time, and it wants to pop back through the bottom. I got it good there. And this is wire number 2. Hit it with some solder. And that one is good. Alright. And next wire, number 1, is green. Green wire up through the bottom. Poking through. And hit it with some solder. We are good. Okay, next wire position number 8. The wire is black. Poke it up through the bottom. Poking through good. Hit it with some solder. Alright, next wire is wire position number 9, and it is blue. I'll take the blue wire, poke it up to the bottom. Hit it with some solder. We are good to go. After the blue wire, the next wire is gray. Where's my gray wire? There it is. Don't mix up the gray and the white. They do look a little bit similar, but not that much. Gray wire goes up through the bottom. Check it on the other side. And this is another one of those that wants to pop out on me, but I think we're good. This wire position 7 is gray. Hit it with some solder. Okay, we're good there. Wire position number 5, second to the last wire, is going to be brown. Poke that up through the bottom. Okay, no, it came out. Poke it up through the bottom. Looks good. Hit it with a little bit of solder. Looks good. And the last wire. The last wire is white. And like I said, on some controllers the original one is clear, but on the replacement cables it is white. Some controllers it's white, but some controllers they use the clear wire. Poke it up through the bottom. That's wire position number 6 on the back of the board. It is white. hit it with some solder, and we are good. Last wire is in place. All right. So all the wires are soldered. Just kind of look over them on this side a little bit to make sure everything looks copacetic. It does. Now I'm going to actually slide the strain relief into the little slot and push the board back onto the mounting bracket. Notice there's a couple of little posts. There's one right here and there's one right here. And the board has holes that correspond to those posts right there and there. You have to set the board back onto those posts before you put the screw in, or it will not go. There we go. It's on both of them. I'm going to put that screw back in the center. The screwdriver. Like that. Okay. So the other thing that I've noticed, I did a couple of I've done this a couple of times before I decided to record the video. But the other thing that I've noticed is that on the original cable, if you look at it, where is that? If you look at it, it's bent. I do not believe that bend was molded into the cable. I believe that the bend came as a result of the controller being assembled and forcing that end of that cable down. So we're going to do the same thing. Basically, we have to kind of push down on it and then grab your controller top at this point and just kind of hold it so that it bends down until you get the top on. And once you get the top on, or the back, whatever you want to call it, but once you get that on, that bend will kind of occur naturally. Come on. Like so. Now it's on. So we still have to finish reassembling the controller. And what I do with these things is two things. For now, I'm just going to put this one in temporarily just to keep it from separating, because that cable that I just put in, there's a little bit of pressure because of that bend that I talked about. That bend is not there yet, so it's kind of fighting me until it gets used to being bent in that position. So anyway, what I like to do is, I'm just going to get a little scrap of tape here. Yeah. I'm going to get a little scrap of tape. I just have a scrap roll of painter's tape. And what I like to do with this is sometimes on the heads of the screws, there's a little bit of adhesive left from where the label was sitting on top of it. And before we go to the next step, I want to take this piece of tape and just see if I can make sure. You can use alcohol, you can use whatever you want, but I just use a little piece of tape and make sure that I get all of the adhesive, if there is any. And actually these all look pretty good so far. There really isn't any, but sometimes there is. And I want to make sure that there's nothing on the tops of the heads of these screws. Because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use a Sharpie. I use a paint Sharpie, that way I guess. It's got black paint in it. You have to actually shake it up to get it to work right. And I want to paint the tops of these screws with my black Sharpie. Like that. Like so. I just recently started using the paint Sharpie. Previously I had just been using a regular Sharpie, but I think that the paint Sharpie actually gives me a little bit more durable finish than the regular Sharpies do. So I've kind of switched to those lately. So 3, And a fourth one. And I still have that fifth screw inside the Vectrex, or inside the controller. The whole reason for this Sharpie is completely aesthetic. So if you don't really care about how the screws look on the controller, then you don't have to do that at all. Generally, you give it a little bit of time to dry, but I'm not going to for this demonstration purpose. But anyway, we'll put the screw back in and screw it down. Like that. Another one down on this corner. Like that. And now I'm going to back this one out a little bit. Now that I have those two, I'm going to go back to my piece of tape. This one actually does have a little bit of adhesive on it that I want to be sure that I get off before I use the paint marker. If there's adhesive left on there before you paint it, obviously the paint doesn't stick very well. Like that. Give that one a minute or two to dry while I put in these. Actually, this one's got a little spot that the paint didn't stick very well, so I'm going to hit it again. You don't want to do the paint after you've screwed the screws in, because you'll get paint all over your nice label and you won't be happy with that. But let's put this one in. Screw that down. That one down. And then the last one. And that is it. So, like I said, the thing that I like about this the most is that I have screws in there. They look decent. They actually look really good. And now, if for some reason I need to be able to open this controller again, the screws are accessible. I don't have to worry about making a mess on the label, or trying to get the label off, or trying to order a new label. And it is good to go. This way, like I said, I've tried all the the other suggestions on how to remove these labels and put them back on, and I have not had good luck with that. It comes off kind of half-ass and goes back on even worse. So this, I think, gives you a really nice finish. The little tiny X's that we cut into this label, they're completely obscured by the. Let me see if I can zoom in. This is not really completely covered by the screw. And it looks natural. It looks like that's the way that the controller was made, in my opinion. And that's it. We have a Vectrex controller, brand new cable on it. Looks awesome. And I'm not going to test it on this video because I know that it will work. It was a brand new controller. That's it. Thanks for watching.